MTN Sports.
Welcome back. Professional baseball returned to the Treasure State just a little under a week ago, and with it, a few faces from the past. The Voyagers returned 4 players and the Brewers returned 5. But as Brenna Green tells us, you won't be able to find this returner and our Athlete of the Week where you saw him last.
If you followed the Voyagers last year, Zach Fish should be a familiar face. But for fans, the familiar face isn't exactly in a familiar place.
I love it. I love catching. For me, it's always what I've loved to do.
Fish played in the outfield for Great Falls last season.
Welcome home.
Now he's behind the plate and back to his roots.
I caught throughout high school, and when I went to college, they decided to put me into the outfield, and when the Chicago White Sox gave me this opportunity, they asked if I wanted to go back behind the plate, and we agreed that that was probably the best decision for me and for the organization to be able to go back there and do what I can back there.
But picking up catching again is a bit more complicated than, well, simply catching a ball.
It was just making sure that I was physically ready. I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that my legs are ready, making sure that I'm able to catch 9 innings, because you're not used to that in the outfield where you're running around, you're moving a lot, so your legs are going to feel a little bit better than they are if you're behind the plate.
If you think the complications of catching are just physical, think again.
Mentally, no matter how you're doing at the plate or how the game is going, you always have to be locked in. You always have to be able to make sure that you're there for your pitching staff and that you're there for your team, because you control the game a lot too.
Some players would shy away from that kind of responsibility, but not Fish.
I love catching, and just every part about it. I mean, you're involved. You can help your team. You can always catch well, call a good game, make the blocks, and make the plays that you need to behind the plate.
In Great Falls, Brenna Green, MTN Sports.
Finals of the state junior golf tournament in Polson today. First rounder Danny Freese of Forsyth with a nice approach to number 7. He would 2-putt for a par, but he blew up today. Sticer gets a birdie to go. He would win the 16 to 17-year-old group, but finished 1 stroke behind 15-year-old Riggs Johnston of Libby. Johnston wins the overall title for a 2nd straight year. To the girls now, Hayden Floor of Billings tied for 2nd entering the day with a nice leg on a long birdie on the par 3, number 17. She taps that one in for par and finishes strong to take 2nd. Then it's Tegan Avery stepping up and burying her own par. Avery wins for the overall title for a 3rd straight year, and she won her age group 7 straight times. This is the last year she can play in the event. Marvin Camel is known as one of the best boxers to ever come out of Montana, and in a new book, one Helena author details his rise to becoming the world champion. MTN's Gordon Voigt tells us why you can't help but cheer for the writer and his subject.
Well, with me is boxing as a metaphor for life, and writers in general have always been attracted to the sweet science for its duality, its beautiful beauty and its brutality.
Helena author Brian D'Ambrosio has a burning passion for boxing that made his latest project more than just a job, but a true privilege, telling the story of the first ever Native American world champion boxer Marvin Camel. Today, D'Ambrosio was at Butte's Books and Books signing copies of the fruit of his many months of labor, Warrior in the Ring.
He grew up in a very abusive home. He had an abusive father. Henry, his father, he abandoned Marvin and his 13 siblings. So Marvin grew up in a very poor household in Ronan.
Not only that, but he was teased by his flathead peers for being half native, half black. But none of that, not even a grueling 13-hour work schedule, kept him from pursuing his one true love, the ring.
For Marvin, it was a supreme conditioning and an iron will and that iron determination that says, hey, I'm going to achieve greatness, I'm going to be the best.
In fact, his first professional fight was in Butte in 1973. From that point on, he won 2 world titles and boldly showed his native pride, even though he was an outcast to many members of the reservation.
I think Marvin's story retains and resembles a lot of that magic. So I think for all people in Montana, we can be proud of this story.
That's it for sports. We'll be right back.
Athlete of the Week, brought to you by Tillman Motor Company.